Everybody, welcome back. Drummathon 2020 happening right now, man. And we have Todd Sucherman in the house. How are you doing today, Todd?
I'm doing great, April. How are you doing? You hanging in there?
Man, I'm doing awesome. I am totally amped up. I'm fired up. I'm caffeined up for Drummathon 2020. We're just raising funds. I noticed that we're already over $45,000 in funds raised, and we are kicking it towards that $50,000 goal. So every single one of you guys joined in today is a huge help for that. So thank you so much for being here, man.
Right on. Congratulations. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, and that video we just watched was from Drumeo, and they were amazing to provide that, right? I mean, when did you do that video anyway?
Boy, time's elastic for me right now. I want to say that was 2017, maybe 18, but 2017 was when I was up at Drumeo for the first time.
Wow.
And thanks to them for allowing me to use that clip. I got a bunch of things that are torn apart here at the studio, redoing some things for a big project later on this week. So thanks to them for allowing us to use that clip for my performance segment today.
Yeah, totally. And we're thankful to Drumeo as well. They've actually provided a couple, and Chip Ritter is going to have a performance a little later, and his is from Drumeo as well. And they just have some of the most amazing footage, and God, the quality and everything. But that aside, man, drummer for Styx for how long now, man?
67 years now. It's been
67 years? Is that right?
7 years. Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the 75th anniversary.
That's awesome. It's been a couple years.
Actually, next year is going to be 25th year, actually.
Wow, man. I saw you guys when you came through Dallas. I think Tesla opened the show, and I was amazed at the energy level that you guys had. It was so amazing. And to still be doing it after all these years, how's that been? It's like there's just been a resurgence of all the bands from the 80s just coming back and killing it in the arenas all over again.
Well, I never take it for granted that I feel very fortunate that I ended up being in a band that, sold, close to 40 million records before I ever came around. So that music means a lot to those who, bought the records. And sometimes they have parents or older siblings, whatever, that turn the younger generation onto it because maybe they don't resonate or respond with, certain pop music. I mean, there was always candied pop and flash in the pans in the music business going back to the 50s. So that never changes in through the generations. But I will say that any band that was lucky enough to let's keep it in the rock genre, to come and have hits in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, back in the days when there was vinyl, where you would sit there holding the record, reading the liner notes, the lyrics, looking at the art, double gatefold. If you had a career then and you had at least one or two hits, you could always have a career because there's something about the vinyl holding that record that really sinks its claws into you, and you're tethered to that music or that act for the rest of your life. In the world of kind of CDs thrown out the window and digital music that you can conjure out of the air, it's hard to build for bands to build a following through the years, and that's something that, again, if you didn't have a career in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, you might not really have something like that can go on for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, I personally feel that way because a lot of the music that I love is from the 80s and the 70s, and I feel a deep connection to all that. And it, of course, takes you back to that moment in time, whatever was happening, and that music always brings back that feeling of youth, And I think it's been really great to see all the different bands come back around and all the arena and stadium tours and stuff like that, and just really packing it out. And to your point, you mentioned that they pass it on to their children and whatnot. We just call that good parenting around here. So that's just good parenting,
Yeah, it's amazing to see the age bracket at the shows that we did rather right now. But it's astonishing, to see, 14-year-olds in the front row singing along with every song. So You know, it's a great thing.
Yeah, you can't lose at that. I don't know if I ever told you, but I'm actually in an '80s tribute band, so we play normally 120 shows a year, and so there's huge crowds that still come out to see that, and so we just keep firing along, and it's so much fun. You know, when I was talking to Aaron a little earlier today, we kind of touched on how he got interested in drumming and how he started out in his drumming career. I wonder if you could tell everybody watching right now how was it that you were drawn into drumming in the very beginning?
You know, the greatest card I was dealt in life was being the youngest in a musical family and having a father who was a drummer. So there were drums in the house, and I was absolutely fascinated and in love with the drums and music from the time I was literally an infant. So, I mean, it was pretty clear that I was going to be a drummer since the age of two. Um, and I had two older brothers, still have two older brothers, Paul and Joel. And Paul took to the piano when he was a baby, and he was 7 years older than I am. And Joel, the middle brother, ended up playing bass because it rounded out a rhythm section. So from the time, boy, I did my first paying gig when I was 6. So we would, we play ball in the yard or go for a swim and then come in the house and play music, and had two musician parents
I have to
that
I have to ask, like, where's your paying gig when you're 6 years old, man?
I that was it was the Bicentennial in Prosel Park in Lincolnwood, Illinois.
Oh, wow. Like, what
And,
kind of
and
tunes were you playing?
because of that, we did, we started doing bar mitzvahs and parties and all
Uh-huh.
sorts of things.
That's so awesome. Is like everybody in your family was involved?
Well, it was just the three of us. We were the Sucherman brothers.
That's
But
so cool.
my mother could play piano and sang. My father was a drummer and a band leader and could play piano as well. So it was a great way to grow up. And there was always music in the house. There was a couple stereos in every bedroom and in the family room and in the living room. So there could be Beethoven in one room and Count Basie in the next room and Led Zeppelin out of another room. So there was always music and always, hey, check out this record. And because I had older brothers, they had older friends that were musicians. So they'd come home with all sorts of different records all the time. And, I can remember, various records, seeing the album cover the first time because they came from somewhere with a stack of records.
I love that. And you're right. When you're in a musical family, you do get uh, a lot of different music that you get to just inhale. You're just like from every angle. And I've kind of had something similar with my folks. They were into like Jim Croce and Neil Diamond, Barbara Streisand, and very different stuff than what I listen to. And then my brother would be like on the alternative side at the time, and Duran Duran and The Cure and whatnot. And then I was over here in the hair bands. I want to be sure, Todd, throughout this conversation, we've got people who have some questions, and we have a question right now I'm going to throw at you. Randy Purdue is wondering, who was your biggest influence in playing drums?
I mean, that would have to be, my father, because it wouldn't have happened had he not been a drummer. And then they would, let me stay up and watch music on television. Buddy Rich on Johnny Carson, Danny Serafin was one of my first drum heroes. I would sit and I'd listen to Chicago 2 all day. Sonny Payne on this one particular Count Basie record, Basie Plays Hefty. I would sit and I'd listen to that record all day. So those were the formulations from literally when I was still in diapers.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember I was telling Aaron earlier that I got my first drumsticks at 5. I don't really remember what it was that drew me to it. I was in music stores often. My brother was taking guitar lessons, and so I just grabbed a pair of sticks, and that was kind of it. And I was picking up Modern Drummer every time, and grabbing that, reading and looking and seeing what's going on in that. But yeah, there's something about drumming, man. It just draws you right to it. Do you remember what your first drum set was? Like your first drum set that like had hi hats and everything? Is that it right there?
Yep,
Are
it's
you?
missing the snare drum. But yeah, that was my father's 1969 Slareland with an 18-inch bass drum. Very rare. Uh,
Wow.
that's the jazz kit that I still when I'm feeling jazzy, I'll sit at that kit. It's amazing that I still have that. So I have three very different drum sets set up in the room that will inspire me to play in a certain way. If I sit at the main kit and I'm not feeling something, I could go to the jazz kit, or I've got a ridiculous 1978 concert tom
Oh yeah,
uh,
that's
uh,
sweet.
behemoth back there,
Hmm.
and I'm bound to get some sort of ideas somehow from one of these three kits. So that's one of the tools that I use. Also, change out a ride cymbal, change your hi hats, grab a different snare drum.
Right,
All of a sudden, you'll be inspired to kind of go down a road that you didn't know you were going to go down that day, or you didn't know you were feeling that. You
right.
came out here to work on something, and all of a sudden you're playing like weird, swampy, slow blues in 6/8 for whatever reason, because you put two 17-inch crashes on your hi hat stand, and now you got these big floppy hi hats.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it,
you're right.
it's it, you know what I mean. You're not going to play, for a guitarist, you're going to play different with a Black Les Paul than you will a 12-string, Martin acoustic. It's
Exactly.
a different instrument in your hand is going to lead you down different roads and different thought processes, and you'll begin to hear and conceptualize different things. So it's not just a sickness that's going on behind me with all this stuff.
There's
I
a
use
method
it,
to your madness.
I use it for a bit of inspiration.
That's awesome. And looking at that, I feel like I'm sitting at like a music store right now, a drum music store, Lone Star Percussion or something, which I'm purposefully plugging because they're a sponsor. But I
Uh,
feel like I'm almost sitting at a percussion store right now. And I was thinking, you're right. You just switch out something small, like just a snare. Oh my gosh, a snare can make the biggest difference. How many
oh
different
yeah.
snares do you have anyway? I mean, do you even know?
I think there's 115 in here right now.
Oh my gosh, man, are you serious? Wow. How do you find your way around? Are there like what are your favorite, like your top five?
It's impossible to say, because at any given moment, oh, I haven't played this one in a while, and I'll pull it out, and it'll just slay me,
Right.
and it'll be like, I kind of forgot about you. I knew you were great, but all of a sudden, it's just Technicolor rainbows flying out of the drum. Uh, so there's nothing in this room that's a dog. If I've gotten rid of, I have sold drums that have uh, underwhelmed me. So there's nothing in here that there's nothing I would want to get rid of in here.
They all
They all
serve
have
their
some.
all serve their purpose, and they you have strong enough feeling towards them that they're gonna be in your arsenal forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hope
Yeah.
we'll see how long the pandemic lasts.
Right. We do have another question, and this is from Michelle Graves. She wants to know if you could play for anyone else other than Styx, who would that be?
Oh boy, so many people. I mean, all the usual suspects. Sting, Peter Gabriel, uh, Genesis, The Who. Um, yeah, I just love playing music. Really, I'm happy to play. Who asked that question? Jennifer
No,
did.
Michelle Graves.
Oh, Michelle. Michelle, if you have music, I'll do that.
There you
I
go.
just like playing, I like playing music. I like having new things coming toward me.
Well, especially right now during this pandemic, we were talking the other day about how it's really changed our day to day activities. Well, so much, of course, but for drummers or musicians, you're having to look at everything so much differently. It's not a live experience anymore. It's mostly either pre-recorded or you're doing a Zoom or something like that. Are you doing a lot of recording right now during the pandemic?
Yeah, I was. Thankfully, it's been pretty busy the last couple months. Initially, when the pandemic hit, I was really sort of concerned because I don't know how to run my studio gear. I'm not a patient troubleshooter, so my personality doesn't lend to figuring out electronic problems in a very calm, cool, collected way.
Noted.
So I've always employed an engineer, and specifically J.R. Taylor, since we met working on my Methods and Mechanics DVD. So he would sit here where I'm sitting, and I'd sit over there. I want to worry about that. I don't want to sit here and go, wait, what happened? Why isn't this working? I just don't have the patience for that. So, and I see people who brilliantly know how to navigate this world, how difficult it is, and how there's almost every session there's some sort of, wait, Well, that's weird. There's always that,
Hmm.
and I don't want to have to worry. But anyway, my point is, uh, it, I thought, okay, well, now I'm really going to have to learn how to work this gear
Right.
and become a reluctant engineer, so to speak. Um, and then I heard about this technology from Audio Movers, a software called Listen To. So we installed this so JR or any engineer can run my rig and drive the gear here and record me safely. So I'm the only one in the room. So before the pandemic hit, I was supposed to go to Nashville and record the upcoming Styx record in April. Well, obviously that did not happen, and all the demos were very uh, clear cut and Technicolor, and obviously they want to build on the drums, so there was some pressure about getting the drums done, and I really wasn't comfortable getting on a plane in April or May
Right.
or June, to be honest with you, and so I said, look, there's this technology. I have all of this here. Why can we try recording the record here? So they agreed, and I recorded 17 songs in 3 days. The
Wow.
audio was listened to. We
Uh-huh.
got on a Zoom call with Tommy and Willa Vankovich, who's producing the record. And so they were able to listen in high resolution audio in their studios and we're on the Zoom call. So if it'd be like, hey, do you
That's
think you could play a different fill going into the second chorus? Like, okay,
yeah.
JR, punch me in.
Yeah. Hang
Boom.
on.
And then
Wow.
yeah, it was really really great. So I've been recording like that ever since, and knock on wood, the Audio Movers thing has been absolutely issue free and has worked flawlessly
That is
so
so
far.
cool. I hadn't even heard of that software. I've done some recording during the pandemic myself. I've recorded about 15 songs, and I I upload everything to Dropbox, and the engineer downloads it, and then they mix it and they upload it back again, and then I put everything together. And so it's a process. I have never passed so many files back and forth in my life till this pandemic. That's for sure. But I see that we
Yeah.
have another question that came in from Brandy Evans McComb. She wants to know, what was your most memorable concert over the years and why?
Oh boy. Um, there's several. There was one very special, emotional one. The first Stick show we did after 9/11 in Kansas. That was particularly memorable because there was no planes and we were on break, and all of us had to uh, drive or buses or trains to get there. So it's a very very long story, but that's particularly memorable. Anytime playing Red Rocks is memorable. Um, Playing with Brian Wilson at Carnegie Hall for Sting's Rainforest benefit, and being on stage with Sting, James Taylor, and Billy Joel, and being in a band that had Will Lee and Hiram Bullock and Larry Carlton, and uh, that was that was pretty amazing.
Wow,
Uh,
yeah. It's funny. You mentioned playing right after 9/11, and Aaron mentioned one of his most memorable shows was playing after a bombing had happened, the big bombings, and I think that whole point of unity and music bringing people together is just very powerful. And I think that it's interesting that those are a couple of y'all's most memorable shows were tied to something like that. I think it's just
well,
something that really
it, it
hits you deep.
it comes to mind just because it's there's some sort of world changing or catastrophic event. There's been many shows where I always bring this up. Lawrence Gowan said something. We did a gig somewhere. In my mind, it was like on the Iowa Illinois border, and it's just one of those gigs where you show up and it looks like it's a racetrack from 1933, and you got trailers for dressing rooms, and it's all like dusty and sooty and porta potties, and you're just it ain't glamorous. So sometimes you show up to those and you're just like, but you're a professional. The gig's going to be fine. But when we went out there and did the gig, there's 10,000 people out there who were particularly unbelievably amazing and manic, and girlfriends on their boyfriends' shoulders. And it was one of those special nights that you're like,
Yeah,
holy smoke. I was not expecting this in wherever we are,
right.
some town we'd heard of. And we got off stage, and I looked at Lawrence, and I said, "That was incredible." And Lawrence goes, I get asked at every interview, "What's your favorite venue to play? Red Rocks, the Gorge?" I'm like, "This.
Yeah.
This is my favorite gig to play. Something where the reaction was so visceral and loud and enthusiastic and almost manically joyous.
It's like the
You know,
energy is just huge, right?
yeah, like that's a gig, and I can't. I wish I could remember the name of the town. Like Sterling, Illinois, or something like that.
Right.
It was just friggin' off the charts.
Right.
It just
Unsuspected
show
and
you.
yeah.
Yeah, you show up at the gig, you're like, "Oh God."
What's this gonna be?
And then it's like, a night you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's so cool. No, I get you, man. It looks like we have another question in from Cruz Pino. This is Chris Pino. I think you might
Hey,
remember
Chris.
him. Yeah.
Yeah,
He says
we go back to 1936.
right. Back in the early Styx years. 6 years. He asks, what inspired you to do your own album with vocals and everything?
Oh boy. I think sheer terror was at the heart of it. J.K. Harrison, an old buddy of mine from the old days, had been harassing me and cajoling me into doing a record where I was the singer for a number of years, and I always laughed him off. I was like, "Dude, thanks. It's very sweet that you think I could do it, but." From my perspective, if I felt like a little kid going, "Gee, I wish I could be a major league ball player or an astronaut." Like I didn't feel I had the talent to actually pull that off. But he did, and he was very tenacious about it. And one night, Taylor and my wife and I were listening to Little Fictions, a record by the band Elbow, and the song Kindling came on, and my wife, who was a brilliant singer, turned to me and said, "You would sound great on this. If you ever do something, you should cover this song." And I just thought, wow, that was weird. It was the same week that JK was after me, and I was going to be in Los Angeles for a week with a couple days off and a couple nights off. So I thought, well, what the hell? Let's get together with JK and see what happens. At the very least, we're going to have a bunch of drinks and a bunch of laughs. No harm, no foul. And by the second day, we had written the song Last Flight Home in like 20, 30 minutes in this lightning round, back and forth. He's at the piano. I'm writing lyrics about what it's like to be constantly stranded in airports. Gee, I never thought I'd miss that, but I do.
That's funny.
And so this whole thing sort of started just organically, and JK has so many song ideas and nuggets and sections and demos. It's like walking into a museum and going, "Well, I like this, and like here we could do this, but maybe let's change this up, or hey, we can add this to this." So it all happened very fast, and I thought, and all of a sudden I got really scared because I'm very comfortable behind the drums. The idea of singing, there's nothing more terrifying and vulnerable than that. So immediately I started becoming deeply frightened and concerned, and thought, there'd be an internet backlash of, "Oh, Sucherman, what do you think? You're a big singing star now. Why don't you shut up and get behind the drums, man? We'll see music, whatever." And I started thinking about these things, and I thought, you know what? Yes, this is what I need to do. I don't think that I need to do a fusion record right now where I'm soloing over, vamps and playing in between kicks. That's all fine and dandy, but this, at the heart of music, is a song and melody and a lyric and a story. That's the stuff that means the most to me. And I think it's much harder to write a song with a good melody and a good lyric than it is to play in between, difficult kicks. Like music to me is more than a jazz fusion obstacle course. So I thought, you're terrified of this. This is where you need to be. This is much harder than putting a fusion record together. And I'm sure there might be some people out there that'll disagree with me, but I've done both. So until you've done both, you can't make a judgment on that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I can't even imagine that's really an example of, if you're scared to do something that is also exciting, that's probably what's telling you should do it.
Yes. Also, if you do it and then you have people telling you shouldn't do it, then maybe you should listen to them. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everyone can be an astronaut, right?
Right.
But when I finally had the courage to play it for people that, a few select people that would tell me the truth, their responses, they were so shocked and gobsmacked, uh, that was the encouragement that I needed to go, yeah, this is I can stand behind this. I can put my name on this and think, well, you might not like it, but it doesn't suck. And I'm not embarrassed of anything on it. So that's was the grand experiment. I wanted to be able to stand behind every note, every lyric, every sound and go, yeah, it's art. Nobody likes everything. Pleasing everybody all the time has never been done by anybody successfully in the history of show business. So,
Exactly. Yep.
um,
Yep.
you know, I thought it was a gargantuan challenge, and I was inspired to take it on. So thanks for that question, Chris.
Yeah, that was a good one. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna just double check and make sure we don't have any questions holding in the queue here. I know we've got Dr. Joyce O'Shaughnessy is coming up after you. How many times have you had an oncologist follow you in an interview? I wonder. Probably not many.
I don't know, and this is the first that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Did you want to give a shout out to anybody that you know of that's going through breast cancer, or any kind of cancer while you're here?
No, I had a dear friend's wife and a friend of mine from years ago in California that went through it and beat it. So I'll just say early detection is critical, and I think that's a very important thing to do. So
Yeah.
cheers to them, cheers to you, and
Well,
cheers
thank
to
you.
all of those who are fighting currently.
Well, thank you so much. It looks like we have one final question and then we're going to wrap it up here. This comes in from Lynn Bartnett. She says, Todd, tell us about playing with Spinal Tap.
Ah, yes, I posted today. It was 20 years ago that I played with Spinal Tap for the first time, and we did Stonehenge in the Tonight Show, October 4th, 2000. One thing I remember about that, other than all those guys are lovely, and CJ Vanston was my in. He was a musical director, and he was the one who called me to do it. Uh, I just remember, and I'll post a picture of this tomorrow. I remember coming down. You're in the green room and you're waiting, and you go in, and it's Chris Guest and Harry Shearer and Michael McKean, and they're them, and
Right.
then they go off to wardrobe, and they come back, and you're like, holy smokes, it's them, it's Nigel, and and they're in the full regalia, right? So we're sitting in the green room, and it's time to go down to to places.
Right.
So I go down to the drums, and obviously we're only playing one song, Stonehenge. It's the only song that we had rehearsed, and there's duct tape to my snare drum, a piece of paper that says set list 1, Stonehenge. And I thought,
In case you're going to forget.
I'm like, God damn, that was funny to crack up the drummer getting ready
Right.
to play. And I just peeled that off the snare drum and I set it aside. I'm like, I'm
You
taking
gotta
that home.
keep, yeah, you gotta frame that. That's classic,
That's
man.
going to the frame, and it's up on my wall in the house in the office.
Set list 1, Stonehenge. That's awesome. Wow, that was a great question from Lynn, too. That's awesome. Man,
Thanks,
Todd,
Lynn.
you've been so generous with your time. I just want to thank you so much for being a part of Drummathon 2020 and helping us raise funds. And just know that your being here has drawn attention and had people come in and that are donating on just because you're on the show. So I want to thank you so much for being a part of it and helping us make a difference in the fight against breast cancer, Todd, today. It means so much to me.
Thank you very much. The pleasure was mine. Keep up the fight, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much, Todd. We'll talk real soon. Take care now.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, that was Todd Sucherman in the house, man. So amazing to have.